Yes or no to this statement? Ban college football, and jaws drop all over. Yes, we are talking about that time-honored sport, football, in the place where it first mattered, college, and we are talking about banning it. Welcome to Intelligence Squared US. I'm John Donvan. We have four superbly qualified debaters, 2 against 2. And for a taste of the kind of poetry and passion and pain that comes to bear when we discuss the meaning of football, I just want to give you a taste, a sample of what one NFL player wrote back in 2001 about playing through pain. He said, "To this day, I will encourage people to feel the knob below my neck where the collarbone was sprung free from my sternum in the middle of a game against the 49ers. That was pain." And he loved it. So, are we talking about madness, or are we talking about courage when we debate the question of banning college football? Let's meet our debaters. On the side arguing for the motion to ban college football, Buzz Bissinger, a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer and author of the book Friday Night Lights. His partner is Malcolm Gladwell, a staff writer at The New Yorker and author of 4 bestsellers, among them The Tipping Point. Arguing against the motion, arguing not to ban college football, Tim Green, a College Football Hall of Famer and former Atlanta Falcons defensive end. And his partner, Jason Whitlock, a FoxSports.com national columnist and former offensive tackle for Ball State University. So this is a contest, and in this debate, one team will win, the other team will lose, and you, our live audience, will choose our winners by your vote. Let's go to the first round of voting now. The keypad at your seat will register where you stand on this motion at this point, as you come in off the street. The motion is ban college football. And if you agree with the motion, press number 1. And if you disagree with the motion, number 2. And if you're undecided, push number 3. And at the end of the debate, we will have you vote a second time, and at that point, we will reveal the results of both numbers, and the team that has moved its numbers the most will be declared our winner. And speaking first for the motion, ban college football, I'd like to introduce Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell is a New Yorker staff writer, chronicler of The Counterintuitive, and author of Outliers, Blink, and The Tipping Point. Ladies and gentlemen, Malcolm Gladwell.
Thank you. I should say before I start that I haven't debated since college, and that was many years ago, and that was in Canada. And in Canada, a debate isn't really a debate. It's simply an alternate mechanism of reaching consensus. So this is all very new and exciting for me. This debate is about a very specific question. Right now in colleges across the country, schools field football teams for the purpose of offering recreation to the players and offering entertainment to fans and students and alumni. And the question is that appropriate? Buzz is going to say that's not appropriate because the players are exploited. And I'm going to say that it's not appropriate because schools should not be in the business of encouraging young men to hit themselves over the head. Let's talk a little bit about hitting over the head. Start with the simple physics of football. The human brain is a mass of soft tissue that is suspended within a hard skull, right? Every time you get hit, that soft tissue rattles around inside your skull, and the effect of that rattling around is to stretch and sometimes tear the connections between your nerve cells. In the course of everyday life, that almost never happens. In the course of playing football, that happens all the time. It is not unusual in the course of a game for a player to sustain hits to the head of between 40 and 100 Gs. To put that in perspective, if you were to get in your car and not put on your seatbelt and drive at 25 miles an hour into a brick wall so that your forehead struck the dashboard of the car, that would be a hit of 100 Gs. Right? If you reversed your car and went and did it over and over again so that you hit the brick wall 30 to 40 times at speeds between 20 and 25 miles an hour, that would be the equivalent of a football game. If you reversed your car and over the course of the next 3 months drove it at 25 miles an hour into a brick wall 1,000 times, that would be the equivalent of a college football season. The real issue is all of those thousands of tiny hits. There isn't a helmet in the world that can be designed that can take the sting out of those hits. And there is no way to play the game of football and remove those hits without turning tackle football into touch football. And last I checked, this was not a debate about whether we should ban touch football on college campuses. Now, what's the effect of all of that neurological trauma? Well, we know. It's a condition called CTE, right, which brings about premature death and the equivalent of Alzheimer's in people who are as young as 40 years old. I've seen pictures of the brain scans of people with CTE, and it looks like someone drove a truck across their brain. Now, we don't know how many ex-football players have this condition because you can't diagnose it until they die, right? So you do an autopsy of your brain. But there are people who estimate there are as many as 20% of football players who have this condition. And we also know that there are players as young as 18 years old who have been diagnosed with CTE. Now, I have no problem whatsoever with grown men in full possession of the facts and risks of the game, choosing to participate in a potentially lethal profession, right? I have no problem with people who smoke cigarettes. I have no problem with people who do deep-sea diving. I have no problem with people who want to drive their motorcycles without a helmet on. If you want to play Russian roulette with your brain, fine. But college is a very, very different matter. Every single college in this country, rich or poor, big or small, is supported by the taxpayer dollars of the people in this room. And nowhere in that social contract does it say that it's okay to promote and encourage young men to hit themselves over and over again in the head in the name of entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm Gladwell. Our motion is ban college football, and here to speak against the motion, Tim Green. He's a College Football Hall of Famer, a former Atlanta Falcons defensive end, a lawyer, the author of 26 books. He has been called the Renaissance man of sports by both Sports Illustrated and the LA Times. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Green.
Thank you. When I was first asked to do this, of course, I asked permission from my wife, as any good husband will. And when she said, well, what's the debate? I said, ban college football or not. She said, well, that's ludicrous. You'll win that debate. I said, yeah. She said, you can win the debate, can't you? I said, absolutely. She said, well, who are you debating? I said, Buzz Bissinger, Malcolm Gladwell. She said, you've had too many concussions. And I have, and I agree with our opponents, Mr. Gladwell and Mr. Bissinger, in a lot of ways. Football is a brutal game, and I have grave concerns about concussions and the impact of concussions. I also agree that I think college football players, because of the revenues that they generate, should be paid. I think a small stipend. I think that they deserve that. And so in some ways I do agree with them, but banning college football, I had to get over my initial horror at the notion, because of course football for me has done a lot of tremendous things. And so I looked into the numbers as far as what does college football, what are the benefits of college football and what are the detriments? Well, the detriments certainly are the head injuries. Now, I've got to say this because we've got to get things straight from the beginning about the concussions and the G-forces, because Mr. Gladwell talked about 100 G-forces when you hit your head into a brick wall at 25 miles an hour 30 times a game. That does not happen in a college football game. That does not happen in an NFL football game, because when you get hit at 100 Gs, you get a concussion. And when you get a concussion, now more than ever, you are taken out of the game and you are put into some rehab program. Now, back when I played, back when Jason played, it wasn't like that. It was, do you know where you are? No. How many fingers do I have up? 4. Okay, that's close enough. You're ready to go back in. It's not like that anymore. And so the game is evolving to become safer and safer, as safe as it can be. But it will never be completely safe. It won't be completely safe. So what I said to myself is, I said, well, let me look at some things that are maybe as unsafe or maybe even more unsafe than playing the game of football. And so, of course, Automobile accidents came to mind because the mortality rate is about 100 times higher for men in that age range that they're going to die in an automobile accident than they're going to die on the football field. And then I said, well, look, how about going out and riding your bicycle? That's right, that's more dangerous, or downhill skiing. And then I said, well, let me look at sports. And so I went to the NCAA and I looked at their sports, and I looked at a study that was done at the University of North Carolina. I looked at the study of the fatalities, direct fatalities, and the sports that are more dangerous than football: equestrian riding, female downhill skiing, lacrosse, water polo, and baseball. And then I went to indirect fatalities, and I looked, and I found that rowing, basketball, skiing, water polo, and swimming are all more dangerous than football. And so if we're going to say, well, football has to be banned, then I think it's only right that we say we pretty much have to ban all college sports if we're going to do it based on the risks and the safety. The other thing that I just have to disagree with Mr. Gladwell, and I know this is dangerous territory for me, but he talked about grown men. And to suggest that college football players at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21 are not grown men, that's just not true. Because we'll take 18, 19, 20-year-olds and we'll send them off to Afghanistan or wherever in the world we need them to help protect our country. And those are grown men. And so at the age of majority, at 18, I think that they have the right to make that decision. For me, the game of football, and I was serious about the lessons of football on an individual basis of teamwork, hard work, perseverance, and tolerance. And I know my partner Jason is going to talk more about that when he has his turn. Those are wonderful lessons that for me were an education in and of themselves. So I hope that you will all vote tonight to not ban college football. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim Green. And here's a reminder of where we are. We are halfway through the opening round of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate. I'm John Donvan. We have 4 debaters, 2 teams of 2, fighting it out over this motion: ban college football. You have heard 2 of the opening statements, and now on to the third, debating in support of the motion, ban college football, Buzz Bissinger. He is winner of the Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting and author of several bestsellers, including Friday Night Lights. His newest book is called Father's Day. It's due out on Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, Buzz Bissinger.
Thank you. You know, it seems to me that given that this debate is taking place at a university that is one of the greatest and most innovative in the country that doesn't have football, I think this debate ends right now. One of the things that we are looking at and must look at, which makes this debate pertinent, is the role of the university. It is pivotal. Questions over course offerings, allocation of resources in a very difficult era as governors are slashing to the bone, dwindling money, rising tuition. Study time in colleges has gone from over 40 hours in the 1960s to 20 hours in the 1980s to currently 13 hours of study time. And I believe that at the top of what has become the university distraction, the distracted university, is football. It sucks all the air out of the room. The amount of money that coaches make is insulting. It is insulting when a coach is making 5 to 10 to 15 times more than a college president. What does it say? What does it say about the priorities of a university? It says that the head coach runs the school. And make no mistake, that was the tragedy of Joe Paterno. He did run Penn State. A few facts. In what they call the Football Bowl subdivision, the big 125 schools, spending per student in those schools, $13,471. Spending per athlete, $91,053. 6.8 times as much for a student athlete. In the famed SEC, 11.6 times as much. From USA Today, June 16th of 2011, more than $470 million. More than $470 million, most of it in student fees by students who do not play sports, went into subsidized college athletic programs, in particular in football. And this is an era, a national trend of declining state support, tuition increases, and salary freezes. How many football programs have cut their budgets? A few did in 2010, but it's back up. It is back up. It is back up. Salaries of coaches. I mentioned it. Average salary for a football coach, $1.47 million. That's up 55% in 6 seasons. A professor, 1986 to 2007, his salary went up 30%. The college president, 100%. The football coach, 500%. 500%. And I defy both of you to tell me why Urban Meyer deserves of Ohio State $24 million over 6 seasons. I defy you to tell me that. I defy you to tell me why Mac Brown deserves $5.192 million, not to mention the $850,000 bonus he will get. And I can go down the line, not to mention David Cutcliffe at Duke, which has a terrible football program, who receives $1.762 million. And there are all these myths. Myth, increased alumni giving. Myth, 2005, Robert Frank at the Johnson School of Management at Cornell. Existing empirical literature supports that success in big-time athletics has little, if any, systematic effect on the quality of incoming freshmen and institutions able to attract. That's one of the things about football, is it attracts better students. It does not. It attracts more applications, but the students are of low caliber. Myth, football gives back. Untrue, and I'll go into that later. Graduation rates. NCAA is the most ridiculous formula. The graduation success rate, now they've included the Ivy League. It's ridiculous. And 69%. And what is worse is that the racial gap between black and white is despicable. I'm done.
Thank you, Buzz Bissinger. Our motion is ban college football, and our final debater against the motion is Jason Whitlock. Jason is a national columnist with FoxSports.com. He's a contributor to Fox Sports Radio. He lettered as an offensive tackle for Ball State University, and he was the first sports writer to win a National Journalism Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Whitlock.
Tim, if we lose the debate, I should be blamed because I anticipated all their arguments, and if I do it justice, I will prove how ridiculous their arguments are, or just not ridiculous because Mr. Gladwell and Mr. Bissinger are two of the brightest minds that dabble in sports. No. I did not mean that dismissively. We live in a republic, a democracy. Capitalism is our economic system. The thing we value the most is freedom. We're American, and if you believe in freedom, you can't have the free without the dumb. You can't have it. They go hand in hand. Freedom allows you to do dumb things we find reprehensible. And I would agree. You can put football right in there with cigarettes, alcohol, porn, everything else, things that we tolerate and enjoy here in America. But you cannot separate them. We let capitalism exploit everything, whether we like it or not. And so football has to be tolerated, no different than Ronald McDonald. Ronald McDonald has done far more damage to America than any football coach, any of these overpaid coaches that he's talking about. Mr. Bissinger argues rightfully these coaches are overpaid. Ronald McDonald is overpaid. Hugh Hefner's overpaid. Jenna Jameson's overpaid. What Charlie Sheen's overpaid. That's America. Mr. Bissinger argues in the Wall Street Journal and a little bit today that football is removed from the academic experience. He is wrong. And I mean this respectfully. I'm not playing this for laughs. I'm not trying to be dismissive. Mr. Gladwell, Mr. Bissinger, some of our brightest minds have not participated in football. And many of you in this audience have not participated in football. Football, whether we like it or not, whether you understand it or not when I say it, but football is America. It is the melting pot. College football is the highest level of the melting pot. Football is the Statue of Liberty, college football. You're huddled masses, you're poor, you're tired, people yearning to breathe free. I was one of those kids. Football was my access into the mainstream and a better life. My dad didn't graduate from high school. My mother was a factory worker. I was the first person in my family to go off to college. Football brings the poor and the rich, the black and the white, the Jews and the Gentiles. It brings everybody together, particularly at the college level. I watch our major broadcast media, and I watch the clueless, people that don't have the diversity of experience that I had through college football and through life, and I watch them consistently tear this country apart. I watch them do it with George Zimmerman, O.J. Simpson, Rodney King, whatever the big media story, Barack Obama, consistently tear this country apart. The reason why, and if people have ever read my columns and understood my perspective, the reason why I never lose faith in America is because of my college football experience. I have seen people of different backgrounds overcome tremendous differences to compete for one goal. That's what we allegedly are trying to do here in America. College football needs to be reshaped, remade, less games, less practice, less padded practice.
Jason Whitlock,
Share some
I'm
of the
sorry,
money
your
with
time
the
is up.
coaches.
Jason?
It does not need to be banned.
your time is up. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Jason Whitlock. And that concludes round one of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate. And now we go on to round two, which is where the debaters address each other directly and also answer questions from you in the audience and from me. We have two teams of two who are arguing out this motion, ban college football. Arguing for the motion, we've heard from Buzz Bissinger and Malcolm Gladwell. They're arguing that college football is something like a kind of toxic spill in the society. They make two kinds of arguments. One, the medical argument that it abuses the players, hurts them physically, literally is rattling the brains in their heads. And a financial argument that college football twists universities' priorities so that these schools are less in the education business than they are in the football business, that on these campuses, football becomes a distraction. The team arguing against the motion, Jason Whitlock and Tim Greenfield, they both played in college, and they are arguing that football is a great unifier for the players and for schools. For the schools, they provide identity and loyalty. For the players as individuals, they provide character and discipline and a shot at education that many of them may not have had, and they also dispute almost all of the medical claims made by the other side. So we want to have them mix it up now, and I want to go to the side arguing against the motion. Your opponents are making a very broad philosophical argument that college football as it stands now has no place on university campuses because it makes the schools more about football than it does about education, that this actually causes harm. You make the argument that it's good for the players. They're making the argument maybe so, but it's bad for everybody else because it just messes up what the school is supposed to be about, messes up the finances, and they put this down to a very specific question. Why should these coaches be making millions of dollars and millions of dollars more than the presidents of the universities?
Why shouldn't they be making millions of dollars more? Why? I mean, this is America, and Jason said it. This is a country where we allow pop stars and rappers and hedge fund managers. We allow people to make whatever the market determines that it should make. And I don't understand why we would begrudge anyone any amount of anything.
That hedge fund managers are just as bad? I mean, at this point, can't we declare
what I'm
the
saying is,
debate over?
I wouldn't begrudge, I don't begrudge, you the revenues from your wonderfully successful books, or Buzz, Friday Night Lights, we're all big fans. I don't begrudge you that. Whatever you get is what you get. And whatever the market determines, that's what you earn.
Buzz Bissinger.
I understand, but first of all, these are not-for-profit institutions. Second of all, athletic departments are notoriously bureaucracy heavy. Notorious. Ohio State has an athletic department of 478 people, which is twice as much as the English department at Ohio State. So let's face it, it ain't about capitalism because they're nonprofit institutions. They're not responsible to stockholders. Plus, the Knight Foundation, which has studied football and sports more than any entity in the country in the past 20 years, has said there is absolutely no correlation between a winning record and the amount of a coach's salary.
Your opponents made the point that football players' rate of graduation is actually increasing. Can you take that on?
Well, first of all, that's small comfort if you get a degree in the short term and a massive brain injury in the long term. But secondly,
But you can't.
I don't-
But
wait.
you can't say
wait,
Let him finish.
the other thing that almost everything that our two opponents said, I agree with, if they simply substituted in another sport for football, right? The issue is not that football does all kinds of wonderful things. Of course it does. Do football players graduate? Of course they do. Do they learn all kinds of wonderful character things? Absolutely. But do we have to bash them over the head in order to communicate those virtues? Why can't they row? Why can't they kick a soccer ball?
They
Why can't they
can,
run
but
track?
those
I mean,
sports won't generate.
Jason
They
Whitlock.
won't generate enough money to sustain themselves. And again, I just want to go back to.
wait, it's about money now? That they have to get hit over the head because they can't get
let's
money
finish.
otherwise?
in terms of funding all the other sports you're talking about that you like, yes, they do have to get hit over the head on Saturdays to pay for that.
But
Absolutely.
Jason, you're...
To pay for the rowing team and the soccer
But-
team and all the other sports
I know,
that
but-
no
but
one cares
Jason,
about. Yes.
Your
Buzz
argument is a perfect argument for why football should not be at academic institutions. Make it into a minor league system then. You'll get the same benefits that you're talking about. The melting pot, by the way, the melting pot also, I think, includes Latinos and Asian Americans. And if you can name 4 Jews who played football, you win the debate.
Tim Green.
And I can name you the only one, which was Sid Luckman from Columbia.
Tim Green.
Malcolm, Malcolm,
However, so make it
Malcolm.
into-
Wait,
wait,
I'm
wait,
talking to
wait,
Malcolm
Buzz.
now. I'll talk to you out back later on.
No, I'm going to kick your ass.
And I will defy you, Buzz Bissinger.
Tim Green.
Malcolm, you know, all due respect, you're talking about all this damage that's done to the brain, okay? Show me the studies. Show me proof. Because what I'm looking at right here is indirect fatalities. You said, why couldn't they be rowing? Per 100,000 students, student athletes in rowing, how many indirect fatalities a year? 16. How many in football? 2.2.
Wait,
so why are we going to let them row?
Here's the thing. At that moment in your remarks, when you were comparing fatality rates between sports, I was incredulous. I'm not talking about fatalities on the field. We're talking about long-term health consequences that show up 20 and 30 years later.
Show me the studies.
Here's why we don't know what the long-term consequences of football are. Because you have to shoot yourself and have an autopsy before we know whether you
Malcolm,
have CTE in your brain.
yeah, but
I think, though, we're so caught up in the Junior Seau, Dave Durrison, and the aberrations. I don't think that's the norm. I don't think that, and yes, they make news and we can write about them and people will be interested in it. I think what we're arguing, Malcolm, is that's not the case for the overwhelming majority of people that play football. And because the overwhelming majority stop at high school, and then the next big group stops at college, and now we have some examples of a few pro athletes that have had these amazing problems. We haven't seen the studies that say college athletes in any significant number have these problems.
Jason, the two of you who have played, I want to ask you, I mean, given the arguments made on the other side, you've both probably hit your head a bunch of times. I mean, they're arguing you're two very successful guys. You might be a lot more successful if you hadn't played football. But do you actually worry about the statistics that Malcolm is citing, since you both have played the game? Do you worry about it?
I have concerns, but this is the cell phone syndrome, folks. 10 years ago, people said, cell phones next to the head. It's brain cancer, cell phones, brain cancer. And everyone said, oh my gosh, cell phones, brain cancer. And I'm walking around, my wife's saying, you can't use your cell phone, you can't hold it next to your head. And I started to believe it. I'm like, yeah, I got to use my speakerphone, I got to use the thing. Guess what? They've done studies, long-term studies, and they found there is no correlation between cell phones and brain cancer.
Wait.
So
Name the last time someone shot themselves in the chest because of cell phone
Malcolm,
use.
you're taking, you
No,
know what you're doing?
I am
You're
not
taking, you're taking, as Jason said, an aberration.
I did,
You're
'cause I
taking-
use AT&T.
you-
There are 64. There are 64 players in the National Football League who are currently suing the league over their brain injuries. Right? That is the thin end of the wedge. We don't know how large the group of affected players is, and the question for us is:
We can't use
until we
lawsuits.
know what the extent of the medical damage is, what is the appropriate position to take as custodians of the personal and intellectual development of young people?
Buzz Bissinger.
Well, listen, have the studies been definitive? No. However,
Thank you.
But wait a sec. BU has studied the brains of 44 players who died early either because of Alzheimer's, suicide, which is a very, very complex issue. I agree with Jason about why Junior Seau died. We don't know. But in each of those 44 brains, they found advanced CTE. Their brains were shriveled. The first case was Andre Waters, who shot himself at the age of 43. Forget suicide. When they looked at his brain, they said he had the brain of a 67-year-old man. And you know how Andre Waters played. He probably suffered 25 to 30 concussions during his career. So you have 44 cases in which there were advanced signs of CTE in players who either had Alzheimer's, early Alzheimer's, or died.
There are
So there are
Jason Whitlock.
studies.
You wanna-
There
no,
are
go ahead. Oh,
studies.
Tim Green.
And
There are 6,000 former NFL players over the last 20 years, and
Well,
you're talking
but
about
1,000 are
how
filing
many?
suit.
Take 6,000. Take 6,000 clergymen, 6,000
But a
university
1,000
professors,
there's a class action
6,000
suit.
bus drivers.
But Tim,
You're-
there's a class action suit.
I
filed
don't
by
want to be
1,000
this cynical,
ex-NFL
Buzz. I
players.
don't want to be this cynical, but this is also America. We sue over everything. You get broke and desperate. Seriously, I've written about this in the past. Remember we had this whole deal about the old NFL players not being taken care of by the current players, and I called it the old NFL players. They want reparations because they're jealous of how much money the current players are making.
Do you
There's a
honestly
lot-
think that?
Absolutely.
You don't think?
Absolutely.
Wait, I think all of you are the two of you are sidestepping the crucial fact here, and that is, yes, this is a complex topic. Yes, this is clearly a heated topic. Yes, we don't know what the full extent of this damage is. The issue is, what do we do at our institutions of higher learning
That's what I
in
wanted
the
to respond to.
interim, right?
That's
What
what
is
I
the
wanted to
prudent
respond.
step?
The
And you
appropriate-
guys seem to take the
Right.
position that until we have definitive
No,
proof of just
no,
how many
no.
people are
The
being killed,
appropriate
we
step
shouldn't do
to take
anything.
is to walk things back. They're playing too many games. I agree. They should walk it back to 11 games. The coaches are earning too much. They should share some with the players. They should have less padded practices and less contact. They should walk things back until we figure it out. You don't just jump to banning.
Right.
Because we would have banned cell phones 10 years ago.
But
as
you're
Tim
you're
just
you're,
pointed
yield,
out.
you're yielding
Wait a
the
second.
you're
Neither of you.
you're actually yielding a lot of their points that there's a real problem there. So you do
Well, no
yield
one
that.
denies
Look
there's
at
a problem.
There was a problem
So
back
there-
in
so-
1976.
So the head
They
injuries,
changed-
so the head
Well,
injuries are real, and the money problem is real.
Look at helmets. Helmets have got better in 1976. The rules changed in 1976. Absolutely. I mean, we're not saying, oh, just go carry on as usual. Yeah, change the rules a little bit. Continue to modify. Have the strike zone. No helmet to helmet hits. Hang on, Buzz.
I'm listening.
Yeah, modify the rules. Pay the players. Keep making the helmets safer and safer, which they are. Do everything we can to protect, but you don't ban things. This is America. We don't ban things. People can burn the flag. We don't ban that. You don't ban college football.
Buzz Bissinger.
The greater issue, which neither of you have answered, is what is the academic purpose of football on a university campus, and why are we the only nation in the world that looks to universities to provide a primary source of athletic entertainment? You talk about kids getting, you know what the graduation rate of football players should be? 100%. Do you know why? They get a free scholarship. Not only that.
It's not free, Buzz.
It's
not free. You work
Tim,
for it.
I didn't interrupt you. Do not interrupt me. They get a scholarship. Beyond that, you have the Phil Knights and the University of Texas. Phil Knight built a $44 million Taj Mahal academic support center for student athletes. Why doesn't he build it for the average student?
No, but Tim, take on the question. Why he's talking about a great imbalance and disparity and where the investment goes.
The money goes to where people pay for it. Look, this is America. People want winners. They want the programs to win, and they'll pay for it.
As a Canadian, I have to go back to something you just said. When you said, this
Yeah,
is
but you guys
America,
don't drive, do you?
this is America, we don't ban things. Are you sure you don't ban things in
You
America?
want me to say this is
Let me
North
think.
America?
Let's think for a moment about something that we've banned recently in America. Gay marriage? Heard about it? We ban things all the time, Tim.
It's
Jason
it's
Whitlock.
it's not banned in New York State, and I think it will cease to be banned everywhere.
It's certainly banned on football programs. Honestly, we are so athletic, obsessed, and for what? For what? I mean, the number of scholarships that we give out, does Penn State really need 29 varsity sports? Does it? Is it right that the single biggest individual contribution given was $70 million for establishment of a Division I hockey program at a time when tuition is going up? And I imagine a lot of those students are leaving because they can no longer afford school, unlike your football players.
Tim Green.
I just don't. I honestly, I don't understand why opportunities for student athletes makes you so angry. I don't. I don't understand why you begrudge college athletes scholarships, especially when part of your own argument is that these football players and basketball players are being exploited because of the revenues that they generate. Those revenues that they generate are used to pay for, and you talked about the expenses that are there. The expenses, it's all part of the show, and they pay for it dearly. They work very hard. And you do take risks.
All right, I want to go to questions from the audience. We have 4 debaters, 2 teams of 2, debating this motion, ban college football. And how this will work, if you raise your hand, I'll call on you. Just wait till a microphone comes to you.
My name is Rick Levy. I'm not a member of the media, but I do have a question regarding the health of the football player. With the exposure in the New Orleans Saints for pay for injuring players, is this, in your experience, happening in college as well? Are college players being rewarded for injuring their opponents?
In the National Football League, what happened with the New Orleans Saints was an aberration. In my 8 years of playing in the NFL, in my 10 years as a broadcaster for Fox Sports and knowing players intimately throughout the league, I never heard of anything quite like it, neither did anyone else. By the way, people knew about what was happening with the New Orleans Saints for the past 3 years, and they were warned over and over again, we hear this, you guys better stop, this is absolutely crazy. It's crazy, it's wrong, it was despicable, it's an aberration, it doesn't happen in pro football, other places, and it certainly has no place, and it has not happened to my knowledge in the college.
Go ahead,
I thought
Buzz.
what Tim said, who was in a position to know the best, was both eloquent and right and reassuring. Tim
I
played
completely
pro
disagree
football. I mean
with
that.
Tim.
Malcolm Gladwell.
However, let's talk about teams on probation since 2009. Georgia Tech, LSU, Michigan, UNC, Alabama, Ohio State, New Mexico, USC, Florida International, Alabama State, West Virginia, Boise State, Hobart. What the? I didn't do it. Nebraska, Tennessee. How many is that? I know you'll say that's anecdotal. Academic cheating. Florida State, 61 players took online courses where they received answers beforehand or did no work. The team had to vacate wins during those seasons. UNC, which has been invoked. All these football players, for some reason, were
All right,
taking
Buzz,
Swahili.
I want to ring the bell. You guys want to respond?
If you have freedom, you're going to have corruption, man.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
That's part of. There's probably.
You
I hate
should
to say
become
it,
head
I
of
don't want to be
Citibank,
offensive.
for
There's
God's
probably.
sakes.
I should have taken a job on Wall Street. Yeah.
You
should've.
look at
Buzz is
suicide.
going to be back next month banning marriage because of infidelity.
Let me come to another question. Right down in the front there, very first row.
Hi, my name's Claire Andre. My question is, it's been kind of black and white, either ban or not ban, but what would you suggest as ways, or not suggest as ways, to encourage to?
Well, can I twist your question just a tad? Because I've been
Sure.
wondering the same thing. Would you be okay with putting
Yeah,
it this way to this
absolutely.
side? Is there a reformable version of college football that you guys would accept?
This is a very radical solution. It's got all sorts of problems. I understand that, but people are talking about universities. You license out your name, and basically you're creating a de facto subsidiary. The universities are out of it. You still call it USC. You still call it whatever. You still call it Nebraska. You still call it Syracuse, but it's out of the university system. The university gets a licensing fee. They negotiate it. It basically is a minor league system that is separate. Or, you know what? You get rid of it. You don't penalize the players. You know who the biggest villain in this is? The NFL. The NFL does not pay a single dime for what is the greatest boondoggle and farm system ever created.
And Malcolm-
so make the
Malcolm,
NFL pony up with a developmental league.
Malcolm, the other part of many of their suggestions are related to making the game safer. So
Yeah.
can you take that on?
Well, the thing that I would be happy with is intramural flag football. Because if you think about it, here's a chance for kids from all kinds of different
Yeah, but that's
backgrounds
definitely don't ask, don't tell.
to come together and
you are-
to learn to play together, and hard work and perseverance. I get all misty-eyed thinking about it.
Now, wait a second. Malcolm, no offense, aren't you talking about gay marriage?
My name's Ashley. One of the questions that you've posed several times is, what is the purpose of football and other athletics in higher education? And if it's overall to bring our universities to the top of the line, does that hold any weight?
Is your question, and I may be wrong, but is your question, what about and this side has made this case, the beneficial effect on bringing a university together, giving it an identity, giving it a sense of purpose and unity? Do you think that's real? And you're asking this side if they think it's real and if they think it's worth it.
Right.
Malcolm Gladwell.
The thing that I always come back to that has mystified me throughout this whole debate is, what on earth is so special about football? I mean, if 50 years ago or 75 years ago, the major colleges had all decided that they would compete at Monopoly, and that somehow Monopoly had gotten lodged in the imagination of the American scholar Monopoly player, and that they started to give out scholarships for Monopoly players, and then the Monopoly coaches earned millions of dollars, and they built large stadia, which thousands of people would come to watch the Monopoly players compete against each other. And then suddenly it was observed that Monopoly had gotten out of control, and we said, maybe it's time for us to turn our back on Monopoly. I can imagine the two of you just standing up there and saying, no, there's something
Yeah, but
magical
her
about
question
this game. My point is, there's nothing, it's just a game. Replace it with another game.
But her question persists that whether it makes no sense to you or
Yeah.
not, her question is she feels that this effect is there and is real. And I want to ask you
Well,
if you think it's there and if it's real and if it's worth
my
it.
point
Let
is-
me take. Go ahead.
My point is, it's probably real, but you could get it with something else.
There was a study done at the University of Oregon by several economists that was in the National Economic Review that showed when the Oregon football team was winning, men's grades went down significantly. They did. You might think it's a laugh, but it's not. By an equivalent of 27 SAT points, they studied half as much and they drank twice as more. So that's what football does. It makes you drunk and stupid.
It makes me nervous when I see that you've written out your question.
Question for Jason Whitlock, actually. You've been talking a lot about freedom and American values, capitalism, and so forth. I think we can all agree that college football is not, and pro football is not a free labor market. People have to play for 3 years in the NCAA before they can be eligible for the draft. The fact that there is a draft is a little bit ridiculous. I think most labor economists would agree. My question to you is, would you do away with these restrictions on freedom for the players, number one? And number two, would college football exist if you did?
I would not do away with them because, I am pro restraints on freedom within reason. And so, no, I actually think it's for the players' best benefit to go on and participate in college football. So no, I'm not for, capital. We need a system of checks and balances throughout our society, and so
Wait,
there
now
need to
I'm
be.
really confused. I've just been listening to you for the last half hour going on about freedom and dumbing, and all of a sudden now you're not for freedom
Well,
anymore.
no, I am for freedom, but look,
Except when you're not.
You know what?
no, that's why we have. That's why we have government and rules and regulations, and there are restraints on freedom. We can't kill each other. Buzz plays
Are you
rough.
in
I
favor
can
then
handle it.
of an antitrust exemption, as many labor economists are who study sports, in which no head coach gets more than $400,000 a year, which is a lot of money? Are you in favor of that?
400,000. I don't know if that would be my limit, but yeah, I'm for. I wish Congress or our government would step in and put some restraints on the NCAA and college football.
And let's face it, the only reason that 3-year rule is in effect is because, and I think Tim will agree, you need that amount of time to develop as a football player to
Right.
be ready for the pros. So that's the only reason. It's what the NFL wants. And basketball, which frankly, major college basketball is in worse shape than football because of the 1 year and out. The 5 starting players at Kentucky, all of them freshmen, are leaving school. So, everything is done basically for the sake either of money or so-called branding or the pros.
Yeah, sorry, thanks.
One of the greatest American philosophers, John Dewey, wrote a book called Democracy in Education, and he discusses the importance of sport and play in the both K through 12 education as well as the system of American higher education. And I'm wondering what the side for banning college football would think, John Dewey would think, of the idea of taking sport and play out of the curriculum.
We're not talking about taking sports out of the curriculum. We're talking about banning semi-professional, or maybe Buzz might have a slightly different interpretation of this than me. But I think that if you look at schools like, for example, MIT, which has one of the highest participation rates in intramural sports in the country, their level of play is far higher than everybody else's, perhaps as a consequence of the fact that they've turned their backs on big-time college sports. So I think you could, if we focused on precisely what John Dewey was interested in doing, which is bringing sports down to the level of the average, the ordinary student, then that would be more easily achieved if we got away from this preoccupation with these enormously costly and dangerous spectacles.
And just to clarify, you could have, people might not like it, you can have wonderful club sports that can be very, very competitive. You can have a schedule, the amount of travel the teams do is ridiculous. You can have a schedule where you're competing against regional teams. I think John Dewey was talking about the development of the whole individual. The fact is there's no phys ed anymore in schools. Everything is about and by and for the athlete. And what happens is you create the athletic culture.
Let me put to the other side, so the solution of having club sports as opposed to sports at the level that you guys played, what would that do?
You're limiting
Jason
access
Whitlock.
for a lot of people, so
You're not going to have
Green.
college scholarships for the athletes. You're saying ban
I'm
college
advocating,
football
here's what
entirely.
I'm advocating that there are other ways to do it, whether it's a minor league system, whether it's an NFL developmental system. Why not the European model? The European model, they don't use their colleges and universities to create soccer players. They have sports academies. They have schools. They pluck players as young as 6 because they say, all right, you want to be a soccer player? You're showing talent, and they go to school there. And the other thing they do that is smart and beneficial is if you're not going to make it, you're weeded out early, so you
All right,
learn at an
Buzz,
early age.
Because of
Wait a second.
time,
All
only
right,
because
all
of time, I want to give you 15 seconds to respond if you want to.
So we're not going to ban college football. We're just going to change it. Because we're going to have colleges that have football teams, and some of those players, the players who want, get to go and get their education. So they
No,
still
I think
have
we
an
ban college football, and then you have a developmental system for those who
That
are at the higher echelons of competition, and for the rest of the
that
schools.
are called Syracuse University, Texas Longhorns,
Yeah,
Oklahoma Sooners.
You license it out. You
Okay,
license
as
it
long
out.
as they can go to school, and those 70% that want to get their education can get it. I think it's
Yeah,
great.
that
All
alleged
right, that
70%.
concludes round 2 of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate. And Remember how you voted at the beginning of the debate. We're going to ask you to vote again in just a few minutes after the closing statements, which will come immediately and be briefly. Round 3, closing statements. Our motion is ban college football. And here to summarize his position against the motion, Tim Green, a best-selling author, former Atlanta Falcon, and College Football Hall of Famer.
There is no question that there are problems with college football, as there are problems with almost every institution in this country. But I hope that after some of the things you've heard tonight from Jason and from me, people who've benefited from the education of college, the education we had on the football field with the perseverance, the hard work, the teamwork, the tolerance, and the benefits that accrue to us through our education, where we earn the opportunity to get college degrees, and sometimes some of the people who get those degrees wouldn't have another way to get them except through the football scholarships. Think about this. Think about, are we going to ban college football? And in a blink, I think you'll vote that we will not.
Thank you, Tim Green. Our motion is ban college football, and here to summarize his position in support of the motion, Buzz Bissinger, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, sports columnist for the Daily Beast, and author of Friday Night Lights.
I mean, thank you. Look, there's no question. This is a radical solution, but I think it is called for in what are radical times. I'm surprised that Tim and Jason seem not to be affected at all about our lagging academic performance, that we're now 14th in the world in math and reading and science when we used to be first, that we're 16th in educational attainment, meaning that other countries are catching up and catching up rapidly and exceeding us. When we used to be first, we simply do not have time to waste. Universities were set up for a primary academic purpose. They were not set up as sports factories disguised as universities.
Thank you, Buzz Bissinger. Ban college football, that is our motion, and here to argue his position against this motion, Jason Whitlock. He is a national columnist for FoxSports.com and an all sports insider and contributor to Fox Sports Radio.
I want to start where I began by Mr. Gladwell, Mr. Bissinger, Malcolm, Buzz, two of the brightest minds I've ever encountered. When I said the comment about them dabbling in sports, it's because most of the time they apply their mind to much bigger issues than sports. And so it's been a worthy debate. I don't think most people understand the educational benefits of college football, and it's dismissed as a bunch of dummies. If we truly understood football and what was transpiring, I don't think anyone would argue that it's not part of the academic experience. It may be part of the academic experience that some people don't respect because they don't understand it, but trust me, it is a big part of the academic experience. It's not perfect. It can be improved. It can be more like the Ivy League system, but there's no way we should ban football.
Thank you, Jason Whitlock. Our motion is ban college football, and here to summarize his position in support of the motion, Malcolm Gladwell, a New Yorker staff writer and author of The Tipping Point.
The most surprising thing about this debate to me, in the end, was that we only mentioned the name Junior Seau twice. And to my mind, Junior Seau's shadow is cast over this whole evening. Last week, shot himself in the chest, and he played 4 years at the University of Southern California, over which time I'm guessing he was hit in the head about 4,000 times. He's not the first. Before Junior Seau, there was Dave Duerson, played 4 years at University of Notre Dame, during which time he was probably hit in the head around 4,000 times. He wasn't the first either. Before him, there was Andre Waters, shot himself in the head, played 4 years at Cheney University, over which time he was probably hit in the head at least 4,000 times. I could go on and on and on, right down to the captain of the Penn football team, who hung himself in his room a couple of years ago. And when they did an autopsy on his brain, what did they find? They found evidence long-term neurological damage that was the result of being hit in the head too many times. I think this debate comes down to one thing, and that is you have to look at the collateral damage this game has left in its wake, and you have to ask the question, is it time to say enough?
Thank you, Malcolm Gladwell. And that concludes our closing statements. And now it's time to see which side you feel has made the best argument here. We want to ask you again to go to the keypads at your seat to register your vote. This will be your second vote. Our motion is ban college football. If you feel that this team presented the stronger argument, press number 1. If it's this team, number 2. Decide against. All right, it's all in. You have heard all of the arguments. 2 teams of 2 trying to change your minds throughout this debate. Ban college football. That is our motion. Ban it or not. Here are the results. Before the debate, 16% were for the motion, 53% were against, 31% were undecided. After the debate, 53% are for the motion. That's up 37%. 39% are against. That's down 14%. 8% are undecided. The side arguing for the motion carries the debate. Our congratulations to them. Thank you from me, John Donovan, and Intelligence Squared US. We'll see you next time.